Hello, and welcome to a special introductory episode of Counter Stories, the MCSR Podcast. I'm your host and MCSR Digital Director, Adam Middleton. Founded in 1997, MCSR is a leader in the field of gender-based violence prevention, harnessing the untapped potential of boys and men as catalysts for positive change through youth development programs, trainings and technical assistance for professionals and service providers worldwide, and effective public education campaigns. Today, our Counter Stories brand presents positive, authentic counter messages through an exploration of art, culture, and social justice in the lives of the young people we meet through our primary violence prevention youth development programs, the Men of Strength or MOST Club, and the Women Inspiring Strength and Empowerment or WISE Club, where these young people are bombarded daily with negative, harmful, and violent messages about the dominant story. Counter stories are narratives that resist negative, dominant values and expectations. We believe they are the foundation for developing healthier personal identities, open to more diverse expressions and actions. Counter Stories, the MCSR Podcast, is our new episodic endeavor with a different topic of focus in each conversation. Exploring themes decided by the MOST and WISE clubs, our youth panelists will discuss the many elements of a given dominant story, then unpack that dominant story and explore new, positive, authentic narratives through their own lenses, shaping a healthy collective analysis in the same fashion as their MOST and WISE clubs. I hope you'll stay tuned for this exciting series, as MOST and WISE Club members not only share stories important to them, but also practice creating art and take up the opportunity to live the counter story. Now, in this special introductory episode of Counter Stories, the MCSR Podcast, you'll get to hear from the team at MCSR, led by our Executive Director, Neil Irvin, about the history of our organization, why an organization like ours is harnessing arts and media like podcasting in the first place, and the future of our movement as MCSR celebrates its 25th anniversary year. Take a listen. Exciting time, right? A new era, really?
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely.
Well, I think we're ready. So for everybody tuned in, I am so pleased to welcome these MCSR All-Stars. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. We might call ourselves Mixer on accident, and that's okay. That's our nickname for you all to know. So these MCSR are Mixer All-Stars to the podcast today. First up, we have a man I call boss, but also, and more importantly, mentor and friend, Executive Director Neil Irvin.
Hello, everybody.
Our gifted and talented Deputy Director, Rachel Friedman.
Hi.
And the incredible and incomparable Jasmine Mendez, who's been back with us on the team for over a year now and is a veteran of our Women Inspiring Strength and Empowerment, or WISE Club. Hi, Jasmine.
Hello.
Now, our listeners heard in our intro some of the special sauce that makes MCSR, MCSR. So I'd like to open with a chance to give all of you a chance to share what makes you you and what brought you to MCSR. So tell me, Neil, in 2 minutes on the clock,
2 minutes.
What called you to an organization like MCSR?
It'd probably be a consistent part of my conversation all the time. It was an opportunity to work with young people, and to develop skills around gender-based violence and specifically sexual assault that, I thought I knew about, I thought I was aware of, and I thought that I was, incorporating that into my work with young people. But, by the time I came to the organization that was starting to grow and shape our values and philosophy and approach to the work, I realized how much more I had to learn and how much more opportunity there was to support young people, through the organization's mission and vision. So it's really always been about the young people for me.
Jasmine, what brought you to MCSR?
Just like Neil just said, I would say that what brought me to Mixer would be the support. I came to Mixer as a really young person, a teenager in my high school years, and the support was just unconditional and it was unwavering. And that kind of made me want to pour into other people as MCSR has poured into me.
Rachel, now they didn't even use their full 2 minutes. So you can go as long as you'd like. Yeah.
I have the floor.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I was actually just making a pit stop back in my hometown of Silver Spring, Maryland. And my plan was to move to New Orleans, and shout out to Idealist. But I saw a job posting on Idealist for Men Can Stop Rape. And I came to the organization with a lot of pretty strong ideas and values around feminism. I had this traditional women's studies degree. And I really didn't know that much about what we do at MCSR. And I didn't know what primary prevention was or really what engaging men and boys work would look like. And that's been a whole journey for my own learning, both professionally and personally. But I was really inspired by the mission of the organization. I was really inspired by how the organization leaned into really difficult subjects and wanted to not only talk about, but address from a community perspective, gender-based violence. And I was very inspired by the people that I met in my interview process and along the way.
Same. I came to this organization as just a participant in the youth development programs. I say, honestly, MCSR, the Most Club, found me. I was lucky to be in the English class, in the classroom that the Most Club was going to be facilitated immediately following during the lunch period. And, you know, I was a second year high school student. I was a sophomore, and I was in a high school where the proportion of young men to women was 1-7. And I felt like I was losing my grip with some of my male peers because I wasn't going to the basketball court to shoot around. I was going to drama club and Most Club, and then MCSR gave me this great space to meet my peers and boys and men, people I look up to this day. And I'm grateful to be back now in my career serving in a professional capacity. I didn't know that these people who taught me dominant encounter stories, I was going to be, redesigning a website for, but I guess that's just life.
So much more than that. A website, so much more than that, though. So much more than that.
So this organization, 25 years in, creating cultures free from violence, promoting healthy masculinity and empowered womanhood, rooted in community, based in strength and grounded in respect. It began as an all volunteer collective. How has that now sustained for 25 years?
I mean, just because I've been here for the majority of that, I think it's really been an authentic and a desire to listen and be collaborative within the relationships we have shaped both here locally in Washington, D.C., in the DMV area, across the country and around the world. It has really been about the desire to collaborate, to lift up healthy masculinity as an impactful tool, to serve communities, to really promote boys and men wanting to be involved as allies, to prevent all forms of violence, and starting with sexual assault. So I would say that kind of transparency, that kind of leadership, that kind of role model, and frankly, that kind of humility, to be willing to lead from the front, but also be willing to lead from behind, and to nurture relationships. We say at the organization all the time, as you all know, we believe in long-term sustainable relationships, and the investment and the difficulty of nurturing and growing and evolving relationships takes honesty and transparency and commitment. And I think that has been the invitation to so many of our, historic partners and colleagues, and the new ones that we make. We really are who we say we are, and we're willing to earn that in how we shape and show up in relationships.
So we've got a new look. We've rebranded. We're also very excited. It's part of what we're celebrating here today in our 25th anniversary year. Talk to me about what it is that we want new audiences to see and feel about MCSR today. Or what is it that you now see and feel about our organization, Jasmine?
I would say, and I think this can answer both questions, like what I want people to see and then what I also see, just the work that Mixer does. Because I feel like in certain ways, the way you market yourself can either help or hurt you. And I feel like the way we are rebranding is definitely getting us out there in like a more modern way, and it'll touch people who it hasn't touched before. And that'll give Mixer an opportunity to support even more people,
Good, Rich.
Oh, I think that our work is for everyone. And I think that all people can find value and purpose and use in the work that we're doing at MCSR. And one of the things that I loved in our process of going through, options in terms of our name and our look and our brand and how we were messaging ourselves is that every person we engaged along the process had a different take and had a different feeling and had a different association. And that included the watermark that's part of our new brand. Some people saw a heartbeat. Some people saw trickles of water. Some people saw a pond. Like some people saw technology.
Sound waves. Yeah.
Sound waves. And I just think that what we do at MCSR really is for everyone. Of course, we have our core programs. We have our key stakeholders. We have specific communities that we're working with and developing relationships with and being in service to. But what we do at MCSR and our values are things that everyone can find meaning in. And I know that's something that's certainly been a part of my own experience. When I started at the organization, I was 25 years old, and I felt very strongly about issues around sexual violence in particular. And I really felt very strongly about all the harm that predominantly men and boys were causing to women and to girls. And one of the things that I learned very early on was that men and boys are actually our greatest resource in preventing and ending this violence. And I, as a woman, can play a role in supporting men and boys around that. And I, as a woman, can also play a role as a shaper of culture and society. And so whatever your background is, however you identify, there is value in learning about our approach and our work. We are very pro-social. We are very invitational. We are very community-based and community-oriented. And I think that most of the people who go through our programs, who go through our trainings, who work with us would say they learned something along the way. And many of them would say that they're better for it.
Yeah, I love that. I just would add, I just so agree with everything Jasmine Rach just said. Just the actual physical look of it to me almost feels as enthusiastic, and it just makes me feel good to see it. I'm energized behind it. But I also feel like it is, more than just symbolically, a restatement, a recommitment. And if you think about all the brands and logos and things that are in this internet world we live in now, it's almost like us stepping out in front again and restating who we are and that we are here of this moment and prepared to move forward, whether it be the watermark. So I'm just really excited because I think it just, again, demonstrates the commitment and the courage and the direction of really important work. And unfortunately, for as much as we've accomplished and as many people as we've served that Jasmine spoke about, there's still a new generation and other groups that need to be brought into this work. Yeah. So I think all of that speaks to our new look and letting people know, we're here and we continue to do this great work.
Yeah. It's so active. It's so present.
It's so present.
Feels really ready for the next 25
Absolutely.
years and beyond.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's going to do it for our first segment, and we'll be right back in just a moment. So I'd like to start our next segment here with a bit of a game, a set of prompts. I think we can have a little fun here because even though our work can be so dire and the violence we confront so ugly, I know that we do still find joy in carrying out our work, being a part of prevention, and of course, working with each other. So I'm going to say a few phrases and I'm going to ask each of you in whatever order you choose, to respond to them. All right. Of the challenges this organization has faced, we've overcome them because of.
Oh, wow.
I could go.
So many words.
The people.
Yeah.
It's always been the people, whether it be the people who participate in our programs, products, or services, or the relationships that we've had. It's always been the people. And it will always be the people who, both at a grassroots level to a societal level, who, again, the research supports this. Most of us are trying to be quality people in our own lives and in the lives that we share with in relationships in our community and the larger society. So I would say it's just always the people, and we've never turned away from the importance not only of the intergenerational approach to our work with people, but really trying to honor the diversity of humanity's presence. And so that to me feels like not a secret. It's just so accurate and so the truth.
Yeah. People.
Yeah. I was going to say the same thing. And, just the people and the willingness to help, I think that's definitely helped us overcome a lot of obstacles in the past because the passion is there, and when the passion is there, there's always where there's a will, there's a way. And we always find a way because we want to help people.
That's a fact.
I think we also stay open, which is really important to be a nonprofit, in Washington, D.C., based in Washington, D.C., but serving nationally for 25 years. We are an organization of people who like to learn and grow and change. And that's really important, especially when you're working with young people. And I think that we as an organization hold as a value staying open a willingness to innovate and to rethink things and to look at something from a different vantage point, and, you know, something that maybe we've come to as a decision at one point doesn't mean that we can never revisit it again. And I think that's really important in terms of longevity and sustainability.
I think that's so true.
All right, number 2. What excites us most about this next chapter is
possibility. So much possibility.
Mhm.
I think that our new name, MCSR, and our new look is going to appeal to a whole new audience
Yeah.
of people and supporters and even just, you know, people who don't have an opinion one way or the other, but want to learn more or think that they know, and then can have a different take based on who we are as an organization and how we connect.
Receive us differently. Even if our work always was for them and with them.
Yeah, that's right.
They can see us
That's right.
differently this time. Okay,
Yeah.
possibilities the most. We all good with possibilities?
Yes, I like possibilities. I want this.
Possibilities plus just how people receive it.
Okay, reception.
Yep.
I would say, I don't know if this is a synonym for possibilities, but I was going to say opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just feels, you know, again, back to the look, back to our relationships, back to where the country is, back to where the city is. There's so much creative energy and space to intervene and to collaborate and to change social norms. And it's just present. And it feels like low hanging fruit for us in a way that we've seen it for so many years, like these opportunities that are emerging in the K through 12 space or with parents or with law enforcement or the military. Everyone is focused on this work in a way that 25 years ago, they weren't.
Yep.
And so what would it look like now that we've gone around the board for 25 years to start out with some context to the work that we're doing and the continued mission and vision of the organization? The opportunities feel endless.
Yeah. I think we're at an important point as a society and in our culture right now where people really do want to feel connected to one another.
Absolutely.
People do, I think, by and large, they want to be in support of each other and they want good things to happen for the people who are in their lives. And even the people who aren't in their lives, I think that, you know, we're at a time right now in society where people really care quite a bit about each other. And, you know, we don't always know the best way to show that. I think the best part of, or assuming best intentions of some of the things that come out of cancel culture is that people want to support each other and they want to protect each other and they don't want there to be harm to people in our country and around the world. And I think that societally, we're in an interesting time right now.
Just to go along with you, for me, I was thinking, the moment is poised for people. We talked about when we went into the pandemic that it was important that we started role modeling and demonstrating the behaviors of kindness,
right,
and to be neighborly.
Right.
It's an important thing for people to recognize how to be a good neighbor, how to be a good citizen, and that how to be inclusive with that. And as you were talking about before, like open to change and evolution. And I think that from a trauma-informed perspective or a public health perspective, again, back to opportunities, our work has always been trying to role model and demonstrate like our full humanity and how that looks when you're standing in line at the store or you're getting gas. Yep. How do we treat one another? And so that foundation of love is both, is not just the rainbows and unicorns you all have heard me say. It's tangible, it's weighty, and it is skill-based.
Yes.
So I really think you're right, Ray. It's like, people are so desirous of being back in public spaces with one another. They're so desirous of engaging one another. And there's new ways in which we have to do it, whether it be through social media or in person. So I think the opportunities are really possible and poignant.
Okay. Last one. This one's personal. You ready?
Mm.
I am still doing this work to see.
Mm.
I am still doing this work to see what comes next and what happens next. I've been with this organization for almost 14 years and I've never gotten bored with the work that we do, with the communities that we serve and that we get to learn from and that we get to partner with. And every step of the way, every turning point for the organization even in the most challenging and difficult of times, has always been ripe with inspiration and an impact. And I stay here and I keep doing this work, and I keep being a part of this organization and this community, because everything that happens next it's always so exciting. And it always, I see so much positive impact in who we are as an organization and in how we show up.
Oh, this is a heavy question. I am still doing this work to see. I feel like there's so much more that has to be done, like as a company, but also as an employee of MCSR, because I just feel like my role has changed so much throughout my years being here, and I'm still learning and I'm still growing and I'm still finding a lot of different ways that I fit into this company. So I feel like I'm still here to see all of the work that I can do. And as a young person, like Rachel said, all my years of being here, I never get bored. I feel like I've had at least like 3 other jobs in like the span of 5 years of being here, and I always come back here. And even like with me going on to law school and stuff, I'm still thinking like, well, how can I come back to Mixer and like maybe be their lawyer? You know, like I just feel like
I love that thinking.
Yeah, like everything that I do always like kind of ties back into Mixer. So I'm still here to see all of the wonderful things that have yet to be accomplished, you know?
I'm still here to see impact. I'm still here to see cultures free from violence. It's,
Yeah.
you know, in some ways we're so proud of what we've done. And there are moments where we can look at discrete elements of MCSR and say mission accomplished. And in other ways, you know, we're not done until there are cultures free from violence. So I'm back to see that impact. And, you know, I'm lucky in this digital age to have a skill set that can be applied to anything. I've supported philanthropy. I've supported artificial intelligence. I've supported tax software every April. And, you know, it's nice to be, and it's reciprocal. It makes me feel good about the work that I'm doing to do good in the world, specifically gender-based violence prevention.
Yeah. You know, I'm still here for, you know, so many of the reasons you all just shared. I mean, there's for me, personal side of, you know, I've learned so much, and it's helped me be the kind of man and father and sibling and son and human being that I want to be. So, you know, I would just be so cautious to think that I would ever lose that or leave it, because it just means so much to me. The other side, like Rachel was saying, and Jasmine yourself as well, Adam, that like, man, we've got so much work to do. And, you know, I used to do construction and day labor, and, you know, those are hard days some days. And this work is equally as hard in its way on days. But when you have the right tools to perform and execute and serve, I've seen the impact of our work. It could sound arrogant to people who don't know. I've witnessed our organization change people's lives. And I like being connected to that. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I'm honoring, you know, my family, my ancestors. I'm being my best self. And, you know, because unfortunately there's still always the threat and challenge of people trying to, impede justice and equity and peace. I feel that most accountable, you know, being present and role modeling how, you know, my humanity as a man and as a Black man, is really central to doing this work. And that's why I'm still here. It just serves my soul so deeply. I really agree with that. And like, I love that I've known the two of you since you were in high school. I think I think it's so amazing to professionally, but also having developed personal relationships with both of you, but to have, you know, been here to bear witness to your growth and all that you both have accomplished. And I think you talk about this, you know, I think that, even if Most and Wise Club hadn't been in your lives, you two are such special and phenomenal people. And I think that you would have gone on to have, you know, great lives and do great things. But I do think that, maybe it's just selfish. Like, I'm so glad that Most and Wise was in your lives, because I get to know the two of you and I get to learn from the two of you. And I think our organization attracts people for a lot of different reasons.
Neil, you said you came to the work more because of your passion around serving young people. And for me, it was around sexual assault issues. And for other people, it's because they've been participants in our programs. We all have so many reasons why we come to the work and to the organization. And I think that what I get out of that personally is really big for me too, in terms of why I stay. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Jasmine and I are going to go dab our eyes and wipe tears away, and we will be right back in just a moment. So next up, we'll take a closer look at the programs, services, and products that shape our work, in particular, the Most and Wise Club and the Healthy Masculinity Action Project, or HMAP. So I'm going to start with the Most and Wise Club, and since 2000, the Men of Strength or Most Club provides boys and young men with a structured and supportive space to learn about healthy masculinity, where the Women Inspiring Strength and Empowerment Club offers a space for girls and young women to create a healthy understanding of empowered womanhood. And I must note that it was in the fall of 2010 that the Most Club members, my Most Club actually at Banneker High School,
Correct.
Responded to requests from their young women peers and helped them launch their own program in what was probably our most important community strength project
Absolutely.
to date, the Wise Club. So help listeners understand exactly how the Most and Wise Clubs work as programs that are based in schools and other youth-serving institutions.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. It's one of the things that I'm most honored to be connected to, and I think one of the things that demonstrates, the not only the relationships but the impact of our work. The Men of Strength clubs that exist in from middle schools through young adulthood into young professional roles are weekly clubs with our Center for Disease Control evaluated curriculum that allows young people, and specifically in our Men of Strength club, boys and male identified young people, to really look at what we call dominant stories of masculinity and to really unpack this narrative that puts rigid definitions of what it is to be a man and really restricts boys' growth and humanity. And we really help them create what we call the counter story, which is a real authentically individual defined definition of what we like to say masculinities. Mm-hmm. And what these boys get to do is with an trusted adult male facilitator, go through our interactive curriculum, learning these lessons of how they are told falsely what it is to be a man. Don't cry, have no emotional intelligence, have sex with lots of women, play a lot of sports, make a lot of money, and that those are the only things that define you as a man. And as you know, that our success with the boys is that invitation to seek alternatives, to be more truer to themselves, has been the thing that has sustained us for the last 25 years. The boys, it's the thing that I've said, before I had children, witnessing these these boys' interactions with one another allowed us to really define how much more we could do. And there's where we created community strength projects. We allowed the boys to not just have their own experience in that space, but they took the club and the lessons from the club and they went to create community strength projects where their leadership as credible messengers, whether they be the captain of the football team or a young person who's on probation, who's receiving social services, who has a different immigration status. We were allowing them to be leaders amongst their peer groups with a message of counter story, humanity, social emotional intelligence. And what continued is snowballed now in 25 states across the country, where the Men of Strength Club continues to engage boys in becoming their best selves as human beings. And we're really proud of that because it really is their leadership that has made it sustain and have the impact in young people's lives that it has. It's one of our tremendous experiences. And, Jasmine, I don't know, should I go right into WISE or do you want to share some of what the WISE experience is? Doesn't matter. We can do both.
No, yes, you can go.
Okay, great. And as Adam said, and what was great, this is an example of that community strength project. The boys told me at your high school, at Benjamin Banneker High School, so let's shout them out, and Principal Berger and her amazing leadership. Neil, the girls want to talk to you. And I said, okay, great. Just, tell them to come to the meeting. And I happened to be coming into the classroom that day with pizzas pizzas and drinks. And I was cornered in the hallway by the girls, who said, look, we see what you're doing with the boys in the Men of Strength Club. We want something like that for us. And we spent the rest of the year working with the girls and finding, an adult, woman to facilitate a space for the girls. And that, now 11 years later, is our Women Inspiring Strength and Empowerment program. And again, there is a great example of the leadership of these young people, these young girls. And I say girls because developmentally that's what they were, who were clear that they saw something their male peers had that they wanted for themselves. And they've shaped it to be something that served and spoke to empowered womanhood, which ultimately is their own empowered humanity as well. So we're really thrilled that we have this opportunity to have two spaces where young people can come together, self-selected, and can benefit from being in either space, however it serves them, and then take the skills and knowledge and abilities that they bring into that space and share that leadership, share those gifts with others. And I think it's the thing that in all the theories that shape our work, from mental health to public health, to safety, to public safety, the Women Inspiring Strength and Empowerment and the Men of Strength Club are really where we prove how all of those theories actually take hold in community and society and really have the impact to sustain and scale, which is where we also were able to then turn. I know we're going to talk about the Healthy Masculinity Action Project. So, as you can tell, I could talk about that program forever because it really, really is continuing to be, my own personal best classroom of how to be the best father I can be. And as you know, Adam, I said, you boys are going to help me take care of my children before I ever even had children. And I couldn't be more blessed to have young people from all over the country and the world check in to ask how my 3 children are doing at any given moment of the year, remembering that this thing is for a lifetime. And we believe this work is for a lifetime to be your best self. And so it is the people, our young people specifically, who have made that happen. And then I want to finally just lift up real quickly all of our school contacts and youth serving institutions, whether it be juvenile justice or social service agencies, whether it be boys and girls clubs, YMCAs, Boy Scouts. We've worked with so many different youth serving institutions over the years who saw the value in our approach to helping young people identify who they wanted to be as individuals. So it is really a really, really special program and a really, really special thing that we just honor and continue to see the benefits of.
Yeah. Well, I want to stay with that for a second because you spoke about the schools and the youth serving institutions. What sets a strong partnership apart? What sets the conditions for a Most or Wise club to really have the right room to grow and thrive once we arrive?
Well, that's a great question. For schools or any environment to be as productive as they are set up to be. And I think, it's one of our great honors when we get the opportunity to work with the Department of Defense. And we've had the great honor to work with all branches of the military for many, many years. We've worked at many college universities for special sports teams, and we've worked in a lot of institutions. And what we've always recognized as it relates to even in our school systems is that, the tone starts at the top. It's always about the leadership. And when you have leadership that understands the importance of our message, our mission, and our vision around violence prevention, around healthy masculinity, around healthy empowered womanhood, recognizing that primary prevention is the most economical resource that we have available to us. Whenever you have leaders who understand that tone is set and then really actually trickles down and really is a part of what the expectation is of any institution. And so in our schools where we've had willing leaders, we've had willing participants, as you know, we've had contacts who are now board members of the organization. We've had principals, counselors, teachers, coaches, parents who have always poured into the opportunity that is the club. And, it's their leadership. And their back to Rachel's comment earlier, their openness to hear this message and recognize this is how we prevent gender-based violence. This is how we promote healthy masculinities or empowered womanhood, that we can't just phone it in. It is an intentional, skill-building, knowledge-based, scientifically proven approach. And you need leaders who don't have to be steeped in the issue, right, but are committed to community, whatever community it is that they serve.
And, I think what's so special about educators in particular, and my father was an educator.
Bob.
Yes, Bob. Hey, Dad.
Shout out, Bob.
What I think is so special about educators is that they really do understand that when there are safer learning environments, learning is so much more possible. Right. And I think that we have we could do a whole podcast on both the quantitative and the qualitative data that we have about how our programs affect young people and all of the positive impacts that are associated with participation in our clubs. But I think that the kind of climate change that happens when you have Most and Wise Club in a school, and the community strength projects that the young people are developing with each other and with their facilitators, and everything from having open meetings with their peers to having school assemblies to participating in morning announcements. You have these young people who are in all different social groups, who are interested in all different things, and they're going throughout their day with Most and Wise Club values and with what they're learning in their club setting. And I think that it really does have a profound impact on the school and on the community, and how the young people are able to, I myself have never been a facilitator, but I've had just the privilege and honor of knowing so many Most and Wise Club members along the way. And, what they tell us about who they get to be and what they get permission to, because that's what young people need sometimes, is they need that permission to, and that encouragement to be who they authentically want to be, and what that means for themselves. And then what it means for their friends and their families can be really huge. And I think that educators are such an important part of that. And anyone who's associated with the school can be an educator.
I would just say anyone who's associated with the program can be a facilitator. There is no way I would not say you're a facilitator, because, again, there's one of the sustainability, the enduring nature of it. Think about how many boys and girls have come to our office, intern in our office, both through high school and college, who sit in your office and seek your counsel. That is the facilitation. That's the benefit of what this program is about. There's not one way to meet people where they are. In fact, it requires so many different skills. There are things that you have worked with Jasmine and Adam around that I would not be able to give them. So, for us, Jasmine's leadership now is so important. Yes. Remember, we've always said, the college guys are responsible for the high school guys. The high school guys are responsible for the middle school, and all of us are responsible for the elementary school. So that synergy is so present. And when they come to our office and they show up to a space where, when we first met you, the thought of going to law school was probably not on the table. And yet you shaped that vision for yourself and saw that possibility for yourself. And so that, to me, was, aside when you think about Adam and how academically gifted you were, and yet so creative in the other space. And what a value to us to have someone who has those abilities as young people and now as professionals. We facilitate in so many different ways. And I just think that's always to be, honored, that is a skill set that is a part of our approach that allows community. It takes a village. Community can really be involved in the work that we do.
I totally agree. Even though you guys have never been formally my Wise Club facilitator, I still look at you as facilitators and my mentors. Even you, Adam, even in the short time that we've known each other, because I feel like it's always teachable moments, and there's always times where I'm learning from you guys, and there's always I'll always keep going back to, but there's always the support where, at times where I feel like I may fall short, you guys always, help me where I'm slipping and stuff like that. So you guys are facilitators, at least to me, you help me a lot.
You as well, right back to us. That's why I say, Jasmine, can you come up here? What do you think? You know what I mean? Because I don't know. And, my daughter's at college right now saying, oh, we want to do this. And you're the first, Rachel, Jasmine, Adam, is this right? Because I don't know always. And I think, again, that goes back to community and facilitation and teaching and leading. And, shout out again to Bob Friedman, and all the educators and teachers that we've had the great honor to work with. Such an undervalued, and maybe emphasize, we all saw during the shelter in place how important teachers really are. And so whatever we can do to ever acknowledge, increasing their ability to take care of their families and stay in the classroom and educate our children, is a really important thing. So absolutely, to all the teachers and all the educators who, understood the difference between formal education and life learning, and the balance that we try to strike here in our work with the young people.
Neil, I'm glad you mentioned the shelter in place. I'm going to play a quick clip of Joshua, a Most Club alum at McKinley Tech, which is also where Jasmine joins us from, who speaks briefly about his experience in the Most Club during the hybrid learning model.
It's kind of difficult to understand how to deal with the issues of problems and things of that nature without having... Imagine if I didn't have Most Club. That's what I'm That's what I'm really thinking. Like, if I didn't have most clubs to be able to interact or have someone to lean on, or have an environment where you can discuss things that you're having issues about, or because I feel like since there's so many people and it's such a close-knit community, you can have a conversation about anything. And that's what is so astonishing to me, how you could be so close to strangers or people that you didn't think you would be this close to, or have that bond with someone else.
I love that. I never get tired of hearing that.
Nice.
I love hearing that 10 plus years later, someone has the same experience in their most club at a different school that I had in my most club.
Yeah. I love that he talked about bonding and closeness.
Yes.
Something that we don't give boys permission to consider or to speak to so powerfully and so importantly. And, this is a talented young man. There's always a hard challenge when you get young people who are as talented as you all were, that it's like, well, of course, it's obvious that it would work. That's where the social emotional intelligence piece is so valuable, because he talks about, again, closeness and bonding with people, strangers, people that he didn't know.
Yep.
That is not most adolescent boys' language. And I think, again, when you talk about school environment and school climate, that's capacity building. We know that our research has shown less critical incidents, less suspensions, less expulsions, higher grade point averages for most and wise club members, because they have a value that is connected to that closeness, that bond. In that moment where something could escalate, you know that even if a most club member or wise member is not with you, you have the support of when you come into that meeting and you say, I was confronted in a way that I was feeling disrespected, or I was feeling concerned or afraid. And you can bring that concern to that space and get the support and the guidance that you need. And I think, again, those are the kinds of things, like you said, Adam, like here we are these many years later, where young people are still having those experiences, and it speaks to the quality of the approach and the impact of the approach.
Neil, I think what you said about how that's not the experience of most adolescent boys, I think is such an important point that really can't be overstated.
Yeah.
It takes courage for young people to share of themselves with one another.
Absolutely.
Particularly for boys.
Absolutely.
Because we do not live in a society that supports boys around developing their full humanity, around experiencing their emotions, processing their emotions, and then sharing their emotions, particularly with one another.
That's right.
And I that's something that I've really learned at this organization that has, I think, in many ways fundamentally changed who I am as a person.
Yeah.
That understanding and that empathy for what boys are experiencing as they're being socialized in the society, and how limiting and painful it is. And what this club does is simply by bringing these young people together and giving them space. And we have a curriculum, and we have trained facilitators, and we have a container to keep everyone safe and to teach the kinds of skill building and the knowledge that is a part of our work and a part of our approach. But to create that kind of space where young people can be safe enough to really connect with one another has a profound impact. And I certainly didn't grow up thinking about the kinds of societal hardships that our young boys and young men are facing.
Mm-hmm.
For me, what I was focused on as a teenager and as a young woman was about what was happening to women and girls. And to acknowledge what boys are experiencing is in no way to say that girls are not also being harmed by this kind of socialization, because they absolutely are. And I won't try to completely say the quote, but Bell Hooks has a great quote about boys
Rest
being—
in peace to Bell Hooks.
That's right. About boys being the first victims of patriarchy, because what they're being told to be is inflicted on them first. And I think that we as a society need to have more compassion and empathy for that. And we also need to be invested in teaching young people how to be the adults that we want them to be, how to be the leaders that we want them to be.
Yeah, it's really well said, Rach. I mean, I think it's the same voice that you speaking in support and behalf of boys is the same as men speaking on behalf of girls.
That's right.
and women. You know, it's our humanity that we're trying to support. And I think that's just so well said.
I'm going to break the fourth wall a little bit because we're sitting here recording a podcast. And I think it'd be valuable to just talk through the connection that we find our work has in shaping culture and changing social norms to arts and media. You know, why is it that we have Counter Stories, the podcast, previous iterations of Counter Stories that Jasmine has participated in? You all have been, you know, co-producers on a film now about child sex trafficking. I know the connection is there, but for someone who's meeting our organization for the first time, not only describe the connection of our work to arts and media, but how MCSR made the decision to factor it as a part of our curricula, as a part of our core objectives as an organization?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. First of all, you know, just in terms of the human experience and human consciousness, stories are important. Stories, you know, we're trying to move the heart so that we can change behavior. So stories are always useful. And, you know, there's all sorts of stories that are out in the world and have been out in the world throughout history, whether it be, you know, symbols in Egypt or literature coming out of any part of the world. For us, we knew that when messages that weren't aligned or that we felt were harmful to the primary prevention and pro-social development of people, we wanted to look at them not just in the way that they were given to us, but to offer in our skill building approach with young people a critical lens with which to look at what are the stories they are telling you of what it is to be a man? What are the stories that are being told to you of what it is to be a woman? And what are the images that we look at and that we're told throughout our schooling or through our faith communities or in our families that are maybe misrepresenting a broader, evolved, more authentic expression? And so for us, one of the things that's great about Most and Wise Club is that they're fun. And so we like to use the media that's being produced. You know, when Most Club started, there was no YouTube. And as social media has evolved, it's just allowed us to intentionally use movies, film, television, so that young people who wanted to develop careers to be writers, directors, in front of the camera, behind the camera, or in the finance office associated with storytelling. Our Healthy Masculinity Action Project that was in 2012, correct? When we first did that, it was not a conference of scientists up on the stage with a marker talking about data sets. We looked at different areas of society and we allowed participants to tell stories related to those things. And so for us, as much as it was intentional, it also felt very natural and both strategic in the reaching people and reaching and touching people's hearts with a perspective that allowed them to, man, I never thought about that. And there's films that we could use, or that we use, like The Sandlot or Home Alone, where if you look at it through one lens, it's a wonderful film and it's heartwarming and it's fun. And if you look at it through another lens, you're like, oh, right. In this narrative that's being told, it's entertainment. But we know that some of these things happen in our community actually impacting people's lives. So it always felt right. And then, you know, because we get to work with so many talented young people who are artists, they are singers and songwriters and musicians and actors and dancers and performers of all different types. It felt like a resource we couldn't ignore. And it served us so very, very well in so many different ways, whether it be through our Black History Month Film Festival or our online Counter Story streaming program. It allowed the service learning hours that students need for graduation to be absorbed as writers, directors. Our young people go to college as consultants, having served federal governments, the White House, the Pentagon, the United Nations, and stories play in that, as do art and media. And so I get excited about that as well, because again, back to opportunities and potential, there's so many of them emerging that I just can't wait to see what art gets created next.
Yeah. I think that the storytelling piece is really important. And, you know, when we talk about healthy masculinity and we talk about the Healthy Masculinity Action Project, which we first launched in 2012, at the core of it was storytelling. And at that time, that was not an approach that was being taken.
Not at all.
At conferences.
Not at all.
You know, and now we see.
It was an innovation.
It was an innovation. Yeah. To say that it's the stories that are going to connect us. and, going to a conference and staring at PowerPoints, may be informative, but that's not what's going to open your eyes and change how you view the world, and then change the decisions that you make.
Right.
And I really, the storytelling piece, I think is huge. And the other part about storytelling is that it then reaches so many other people. I think we're in a place right now where people think that the most important thing about their activism is that they say things to people who are going to agree with what it is that they have to say. And, I have a call to activists right now that's like, what you say and how you say it when it's hard, when people don't want to hear you, when it's not what people are already thinking, that's where the real value lies. And that doesn't have to be for everyone all the time. Everyone is not always in a position to put themselves out there in that way, but through stories and through a sharing of ourselves and sharing of our creativity and our passions and our interests, we have an incredible opportunity to change culture and to change society and to reach so many more people.
And you even see, to just support again, like you even see that our work has helped change how these stories around masculinity, womanhood has changed. People ask, how do you know it's working? I say, ESPN now covers gender-based violence as a part of their daily broadcast. That did not happen 25 years ago. And so I think we have to, celebrating Title IX and the reauthorization of VAWA and our concerns about Roe v. Wade. All of these things are also roles that men could play a part in that storytelling. And that is an evolution, an innovation of the impact that stories can have as activists. It's great to fill the streets and have signs, but there's behavioral change and social norm change that we also need to happen so that it is institutionalized. And if you look at seatbelt law or smoking, we've changed things for public safety that people probably prior to them being changed would have thought never could have happened.
Right.
And stories help do that in a really important way.
And it also creates all these opportunities for people in their professional lives.
That's right, Rach.
To be supportive of the things that matter to them. When Neil and I were working on Nameless, which is a documentary about child sex trafficking, we had men who were working as the videographers, as the editors,
that's right,
as the sound engineers, and they were all supporting the documentary and its creation and then its dissemination and the learning that goes along with that within their professional roles. We're sitting here today. We have two gifted people who, you're not going to get to see on camera, but they're here and they're doing the sound engineering and they're doing the podcast engineering for this. And that makes them a part of this podcast and these stories that we're telling you right now.
You just came up with a new thing for what you said before because they're facilitators too.
That's right.
That's right. Everybody's facilitating the work, and this goes back to healthy masculinity at work. Like, it's everyone has a role to play, as you said, the way that you can. Everyone doesn't have to get on the hotline or be in front of the camera. Years ago, I'm gonna have to give Diddy his praise on this one. Years ago, this is how old this was, but he was talking about his come up and having been at Howard University, talking about, there were a lot of people who wanted to be in front of the camera and that was cool, but there was something about those people behind the camera that I really was more attracted to. And if you look at his rise and ascension, for whatever your preferences around Diddy, it was a moment for me to realize, everyone doesn't have to be on screen. And, nowadays everybody wants likes and you can do things, but it was a different type of service, even as he was trying to build his empire, that it really resonated for me and made more available or more inviting to a broader people. Everyone doesn't want to be in front of the camera. And so I think that's a really important piece you bring up, Rach.
So let's talk about,
please add something really quick? I just wanted to say that I appreciate the fact that you guys made that connection, because although Wise Club kind of started my interest in Mixer, when I saw that Counter Stories flyer and they were like, artists, we need you. I was like, oh my God, this is for me. This is for me. This is my moment. And then when Counter Stories happened and then how great, all of it just went, and how I was finding my voice and stuff like that. I just felt like you guys were really meeting me where I was, especially coming from a technology-based school, and how I just was trying to kind of find my place in the art world. I feel like that really helped me a lot. And then to add, a year later, when I actually started working with you guys, you guys got me turned on to photography. And I feel like I got my, like Neil said, like, you don't always have to be in front of the camera. And when Counter Stories kind of ended, I was so sad. And I was like, well, now what do I do? Like, where do I fit in? And it was like always still, you guys always like found another place where and still to this day, like now I'm making business cards for you guys. Like you always found a place where my art could like fit into the business. And I love that a lot.
I love
Well,
that
right. But
too,
you
Jess.
missed one. You said your photography, you said as in front of the camera as a cast member in Counter Stories, but you also forgot, you spoke to it a little bit with the business cards, but your graphic design, your graphic art.
So many,
you know,
like things, like even the solutions through film. Every time I go in your office, I'm like, wow, I made that. And that's like,
Jasmine,
real.
Spike Lee, you made something for Spike Lee. You've used things at the United Nations and at the White House that,
right.
you know, you who had not even gone for formal training.
Yeah.
We're representing this organization not only domestically, but internationally. And again, this is the benefit of having young people who are talented, who are engaging these resources.
Yes.
And again, I think it speaks to the approach of like relationships and believing in people and not just a bumper sticker, but actually giving young people tangible, important work. And in the nonprofit space, it really is like all hands on deck many times. We need people to do important work for us. So I really appreciate you bringing that up, but so talented, and so serviceable in your roles for us that, as a very young professional, I think it speaks to the best of what our vision is for community.
Yeah.
And for those who are listening, you can see Jasmine on Counter Stories, our docuseries on YouTube. Is that right, Adam?
That's right.
We are MCSR.
We are MCSR.
Yeah.
Big facts.
Yes.
YouTube.com.
Some of my best work there, people.
That's right. You can see some of her original work in the canon. That's right.
That's true.
And if that's too hard, just go to the beautifully redesigned MCSR.org.
Absolutely.
And you will see Counter Stories there as well.
Do that first.
Do that first.
Come check us out.
Do that first.
So you've heard this phrase a lot, naturally, as we've been talking about our work, healthy masculinity. So let me ground you in its definition. Healthy masculinity motivates boys and men to build the knowledge, skills, and abilities to develop more fully authentic, healthier, non-violent selves that continually learn and grow. This skill set balances the head and the heart, leadership and learning, competition and compassion, inspiring boys and men to consistently model the attitudes and behaviors that create healthier relationships, communities, and societies. So it was more than a decade ago when MCSR first led the creation of the Healthy Masculinity Action Project, or HMAP, and we envisioned a future where cultures of equity and respect flourish and safe, healthy relationships and communities thrive. With the launch of HMAP in 2012, MCSR mobilized more than 40 national organizations, government agencies, and corporate partners to ignite the healthy masculinity movement. It was a national catalyst for establishing the value and practice of healthy masculinity in multiple sectors. So we've talked about it a bit, but what, how, why, and what's next as it relates to the Healthy Masculinity Action Project?
Yeah, you know, the how is again back to relationships, but really our mission and vision and the impact that we want to have in inviting boys and men to become our best selves and believing that men can be strong without being violent and recognizing that it's not masculinity, but it is masculinities, that we do not expect everyone to be the same. It is not the approach that we take. And so what we think has resonated with boys and men specifically is that invitation was not a shaming, but a calling in and an invitation to develop who they want to be and then to use those skills. So what we didn't want to do was have another conference. Mm-hmm. The goal for us, because of the work we do in community, is tangible. It's measurable. It's impactful. It's scalable. It changes social norms. And so for us, what we wanted to do, and that's why the word action is so important for us, we know that some of the psychology of development, of socialization of boys and men is that we are socialized to act, to take action. You know, look, if there's a hole in the wall in my house, I'm going to Home Depot and I'm going to fix it. Now, not that I've worked with a lot of female construction workers, but for our work and our message specifically on promoting the positive, healthy, pro-social sides of masculinity, we wanted to invite these leaders, these community partners from urban, rural, suburban communities across the country and internationally into a space to really lift up our desire to be allies with girls and women, to prevent not only gender-based violence and sexual assault, but to role model what is the best version of our humanity so that we can produce communities that are productive and safe for everyone. And, you know, a resounding success that scaled over this last decade has reached over 60 million people with its impact really continues to be the catalyst of saying, okay, as we were saying earlier, and now is the opportunity for more. We believe in men. We believe that boys and men, we believe that boys want to grow up to be men who are contributing to community, contributing to society, following their passions, purposes, and goals, and that they can do that without being violent. And that is what real masculinity is about. And again, real masculinities. And so we look forward to working with other partners for this next go around, preparing for a next level set. Where are we 10 years later? Where is the engaging boys and men work in this, in community? And as Rachel said earlier, and Jasmine alluded to in her conversations, because we are focused on working with boys and men, it is not at the exclusion of girls and women and others.
Right.
But, you all know I always use the metaphor. We're kind of the restaurant that is, we're Dunkin' Donuts. We sell donuts.
Mm-hmm.
We don't fix cars.
Yeah.
And so where we're most credible as messengers is in our work with boys and men. And once we get people engaged in our engaging boys and men work, we can then introduce a broader understanding of how our work also connects with our work with girls and women. Mm-hmm. No one is excluded from our approach, though the train sometimes takes time to meet people where they are, as Jasmine has said earlier, to get them to understand what our strategic investment and approach is. We can't be everything to everybody because we actually are changing people's lives. And so we can't worry about all issues because we have to stay focused on our mission and vision to engage boys and men to be strong without being violent as we become allies with girls and women.
Mm-hmm. You know what I think is great about that, though, is that it's a framework and it's an approach that people can take and apply to all the other issues that they care about as
Absolutely
well.
Right.
Mm-hmm. What we are MCSR, this is what we do here.
Correct.
But when you are a part of MCSR, when you are part of our programs and our services and our communities, you then go forth onto all the other things that you care about, that you're passionate about, and you bring our values and you bring our framework with you.
That's right.
And in that sense, our work is for everyone. And it does connect to everything.
Mm-hmm. It absolutely is. I think about a math formula. I'm over my head. I'm talking math to you all right now. But there's a moment where, there's a function, right? There's a process to solving a formula. And I think that there's times people want us to be further along in the process than we actually are. And because we take the time to really nurture and develop these relationships, it allows us to solve for X the way that it will sustain beyond just that moment. Yeah. I think that's hard for some of our activist friends to grasp, that we're going to be here. We're not asking permission for our work. Right. And I think that's a challenge for them to understand. I know there's issues going on in so many different ways, but just as Rachel said, we know that our approach intersects with all of those. Yes. We recognize the importance of not only primary prevention, but comprehensive interventions that require time. And in this 24-hour news cycle and social media, everyone wants it in 15 seconds. And that's just not how human behavior works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. We will be right back. Well, we're going to close out here. I've been having so much fun with you guys.
It's a good conversation. Yeah. I'm enjoying it.
It's a good one. So naturally, in celebration of our 25 years of work and the different lengths of our tenures here and just this conversation and looking forward to our next chapter, I'm curious from each of you, just one cherished memory in doing this work for this organization. What stands out? It doesn't have to be, no pun intended, your most favorite, but one that might be cherished that really speaks to the work we do. Thank you. So it was some might say it was a wise prompt.
As big facts.
Even better.
Yes.
I think we're done, actually.
Yes.
That's it for me. That's
our most cherished memory is
it just
right
happened.
Now.
Yeah.
I have one.
Go ahead.
I would say it was at the beginning of the year and I was just starting to do Wise Clubs by myself. But there was this one club, it was at Wilson. And we probably had it wasn't that large of a group, but it was really, really intimate. And that's where I facilitated with Joss. And one day she was like, "Oh, I can't make it. Can you go?" So I was like, "Okay." And the whole day I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do. This is going to be so deep. And I wasn't really used to being around them by myself. And I remember only one girl showed up that day, but we had the most meaningful conversation ever. And in all the other, meetings, she would kind of be the one that wouldn't really talk too much because she was just really private and she didn't like a lot of people in her business. And then she just also had like a lot going on. She would like only talk to like me and Josh and like her best friend, like openly. And in that day, I don't know, I just feel like it was like a very vulnerable conversation. And I feel like we both helped each other and we both left like feeling really full. And I was just so scared at first. And it just made me feel really warm because I feel like she trusted me. And yeah, this made me feel really warm inside.
And then she goes and tell her peers about the experience she had in the Wise Club.
Right.
And the ripple continues.
Yeah.
Right. So you can have a final on it. I just want to share. I'll just say quickly, like, I was thinking about this and there's just no way for me not to, it's the young people.
Yeah.
It's just always, I've met so many talented professionals who've taught me so much, who are of all ages. But our young people are absolutely the fountain of youth for me. They have been such a consummate presence and motivation and inspiration. And I've learned so much from them that, it's not even greedy. It's just so desirous of continuing to learn from their leadership and what they are experiencing in the world, to make me a better person. And I couldn't be more thankful. I mean, Jasmine and Adam are obviously here with me and immediate, but I couldn't begin the thousands of young people who've taught me so much. And I just feel so fortunate and blessed and honored that I've had to have them in my life. And as I said earlier, these young people have helped me learn how to become a father and to hold my children accountable and educate and train and love and support and nurture them in such an important way. So I couldn't be more just joyful when I think about them.
I love that. Yeah. I was, as you were talking, Neil, I was having this memory of, this was early on when I was at MCSR. We were over in Adams Morgan, and there would be times where Guan, Anwar, Michael, and Alex,
Dominic, that was the crew that ran.
Yeah,
too.
and they would come and they would hang out at the office, and we'd talk about Most Club, and I was working in development at the time, so they were always a great resource for the reports and the applications. But just being around them and getting to watch them interact with each other and interact with you were their facilitator at the time. It was really special. It really showed me that what we were doing at the organization was something that was really special and important. And, Anwar and Anwar's consulted with us over the years. And he's in Japan doing wonderful things. And Guan's been an individual donor, and Alex is on our board now. And Michael Hayes has been a consultant with us. And, I think that's so amazing that I knew them when they were still in high school. And I've gotten to see them go from being these wonderful, wonderful young men to these amazing grown-ups. And just, all the Most Club members that we have over the years, some of them are fathers now. And, for me, it's a feeling. I think that the cherished memories are more the feelings of, whether it's when we're with our members, or even when it's just our staff and our team, that feeling of being, so different from one another and yet so connected, which I think is part of what Josh was getting at in that clip that you played, Adam. That affects, that's a feeling, and that's an experience that we're all having. And I think that there's just nothing really more important than feeling connected to your fellow human beings. And it's really special and really powerful.
And there's that can't even find the word. It's special to connect with someone you expect to connect with.
Right.
It's even more special when you have that unexpected shared human experience connection in your Most and Wise Club.
Yeah, like when he was talking about, when he was saying like how they were strangers, but they felt so close. Like that reminded me of just like conversations in Neil's office, where even like the first one, I didn't really know anybody in the room, but it just felt like so smooth. Or like when Rachel or Erica, or even Abra has done this before, when they realize like I wasn't feeling too good that day, like they'll come give me a hug, or they'll like say, you got this and stuff like that. I just feel like that bonding is definitely a part of us.
Can I just, because you all just lifted up, if this story for me is an example of all of that, but it just speaks to the impact of our young people and our approach and the network. Years ago, when I was still facilitating clubs daily, we had, over the summertime, we had a young man who was at Duke Ellington School for the Performing Arts here in Washington, D.C., and let's big them up. And we also were running the most club in the Bard School, East Houston Street up in Manhattan, up in New York City. And what ended up happening was something I thought was so amazing. You know, here in the city, we have young people because of our Most Club gear and Wise gear. They see one another on the trains all the time. And they'll, walk up to you while you're having dinner with your family, and it'll be a Most Club member because they see, or a Wise member they see. Well, these young people, the one young man was performing, for a musical concert, in Spain, I believe it was. And the other young man was just going directly to a leadership conference for young people in Germany. And they literally walked into a room. This was not scheduled. This was not planned, but they were in Germany at this youth leadership conference. And they both walk into the room wearing Most Club gear. And they go, "You're in Most Club?" And it's like, "Yeah, I'm in Washington, D.C. And they're like, "Oh, I'm in New York. Neil's my facilitator. Oh, Neil and Jason came up to train me." I just thought that was such a powerful moment to speak to these unexpected relationships and interactions that you have with one another. And that was, that was global.
Yeah.
So I just think, again, it speaks to the rightness of our approach and the accessibility of our approach that allows people to develop relationships with one another unexpectedly. And that as human beings, we have far more in common with one another than differences. And I think the dominant story that we so regularly confront distracts us from that truth.
Yeah. Wonderful. Wonderful. I have a few to pick from. I don't know. I think I might cop out and really say this moment right now. I have to do a quick tribute to the Big Four. When I say the Big Four, I refer to the executive committee that was the team at the time when I came, which was Neil, Rachel, Jason Page, our senior director of national programs, and Pat McGann, who was our director of strategy and planning.
Like a Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, we need a MCSR Mount Rushmore.
That's funny.
When I think about cherished memories, I think about the summer I spent under Pat's tutelage. I knew Neil well as my Most Club facilitator, and I really liked Rachel. And then they said, "You're going to be working with Pat." I'm like, "Who? Why? Please." And we all know Pat. He's professorial and exacting. And so working closely with him and getting his approval it made me feel like a better professional. Like,
absolutely.
I had come to MCSR not to just work with people I liked and my mentors, but to really grow. It was one of the first social media projects I had. And then I started a career in social media, lo and behold. After tribute, very cherished moment, one time as an alum or as a veteran, so I was no longer working at the organization, but I was still in college. I came back and visited, and Jay Page complimented my Jordans. It was just one of the most important validations I ever had in my life.
Sneaker game counts. Sneaker game counts. Going back to that summer, Rachel is the first supervisor, manager, boss I had to negotiate my salary with. We had a very funny conversation that I learned and grew from. And I respect and value that, and have had many salary negotiations since then. That was the jumping off point. But of course, I have to shout out the visionary, the mentor, the friend, the boss, Neil Irvin. I'm here because
that's right.
Because of his leadership, because of his mentorship, because of the bond that he authentically, organically, and insistently created with all of us in 2009, 2010, and 2011. I can never go more than a year without hearing from Neil. I was able to find and fish out the text message that Neil sent me in 2020 asking me to come back to lead this project that I'm so proud of.
Yes.
And, I'm not afraid to say I love and respect you all. So thank you for what you've done in my life.
Love all of you.
Absolutely.
To do what I can do in other people's lives.
Yeah, that means a lot to me.
One more?
Please.
Yeah. Okay. So I forgot this one, but this is one of my favorites. So when I went to school, I was with Mixer for a while, like off and on. And then there was a time where I wasn't working at Mixer. And then, you can ask my mom, because I would like tell her all the time. I'd be like, I want to call them, but like, what if, like, I just want to see how they're doing, but like, what if they're like, we haven't heard from you in so long, like, we don't even love you anymore. Like, I used to always tell her that. I'm like, no, I can't call them. Like, they're going to be mad at me because I haven't talked to them in so long. And then one day, like, out of nowhere, I didn't tell anybody I was doing this. I just was like, I want to call him. And I called, and then Neil picked up the phone, and he's like, hello? I'm like, Neil, it's Jasmine. And he's like, what? Jasmine, come to the office now. Like, let's go to lunch. And I'm still here. Almost.
It's been a very long lunch.
Right? Exactly. Like, I'm still here. Never left that lunch. That's just one of my favorite moments, because it helped remind me that you guys have always been there and you still will be. Like,
Yes.
It was so silly of me to be like, oh, they don't love me anymore. Like, they're probably going to be mad at me. They're going to be like, no. Like, I wasn't even looking for a job. I really just wanted to see how you guys are doing. And I was just like, I've been slipping, and I don't know. You guys just welcome me back with open arms. I love that.
Yeah.
Relationships are so important to us.
Yeah.
Enduring, sustained,
impactful.
Yes.
All right. We can clearly do this all day.
All right.
But as Jasmine and I prove, we always come back. And so we hope that you all will come back and continue to listen. Counter Stories, the MCSR podcast. Thank you. And we will see you next time.
Great job, Adam.
Amazing.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Counter Stories, the MCSR podcast. For more about our work to create cultures free from violence, visit mcsr.org. Until next time, I'm your host, Adam Middleton. Thank you for listening.